She had exactly 8 seconds to complete the precision shot before the hostage would be executed, and every sniper in the special operations community knew the farm girl from Montana would never make the impossible 1,000-yard shot through hurricane-force winds. Sergeant First Class Emma Walsh pressed her eye to the scope of her Barrett M82 rifle, her breathing steady despite the chaos of the rescue operation unfolding around her. Her spotter had been forced to evacuate due to enemy fire, leaving her alone to attempt what ballistics experts called the most technically challenging shot in modern military history. Emma Walsh had never looked like a precision marksman. At 26, she stood 5 feet 7 inches with blonde hair that reminded people more of a county fair queen than a deadly sniper. Her path to the Army's elite sniper school had been unconventional, starting with a wildlife biology degree from Montana State and a childhood spent hunting elk in the Glacier National Park wilderness with her grandfather. The Fort Benning Sniper School buzzed with machismo and skepticism the day Emma arrived for the military's most demanding marksmanship program. Master Sergeant Roy "Hawk" Henderson, a veteran of 3 combat deployments with 47 confirmed kills, looked her up and down with obvious disdain. "They're sending us farm girls now," he announced to the assembled candidates, his words cutting through the Georgia heat. "Hope she knows the difference between shooting deer and shooting back." The other candidates represented the pinnacle of military marksmanship. There was Staff Sergeant Dylan "Reaper" Morrison, a former Marine Scout sniper who could place shots within a quarter inch at 800 yards. Sergeant First Class Carlos "Shadow" Rodriguez from the Rangers, whose urban precision shooting had been proven in classified operations overseas, and Sergeant Jake "Venom" Thompson, the colonel's chosen recruit, who never missed an opportunity to remind everyone that his family had been military marksmen since World War I. "Walsh, you're up," Henderson barked during the first precision shooting assessment. The target was a standard sniper qualification course at 600 yards with moderate wind conditions. Experienced marksmen typically scored 90% or better. Dylan had achieved a perfect score. Carlos managed 96%. Jake scored 94% with textbook form. Emma approached the firing line methodically, her movements deliberate as she studied the environmental conditions. She analyzed the wind patterns through multiple observation points, calculated atmospheric pressure effects, and noted the subtle light variations that would affect bullet trajectory. Her first shot took nearly 3 minutes of preparation. The round missed the target center by 4 inches. Henderson's face reddened with frustration. "Walsh, this isn't a hunting expedition where you can take all day to line up a shot. Combat sniping requires split-second decision-making and immediate execution." The snickers from the other candidates were audible. Dylan leaned over to Carlos. Maybe she should stick to shooting at stationary targets that can't shoot back. But Emma had been testing something the others hadn't considered. Her miss had been intentional, designed to understand how the range's unique atmospheric conditions affected bullet trajectory compared to the theoretical calculations. Her hunting background had taught her that every shooting environment had its own characteristics that couldn't be predicted from standard ballistics tables. "May I attempt the course again, Sergeant?" Emma asked quietly. Henderson's expression showed his skepticism. "You get 1 score, Walsh. This isn't practice time." "I understand, Sergeant, but I believe I can demonstrate the value of proper environmental analysis." Henderson stared at her for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "Make it count." Emma's second attempt was dramatically different. Using the data from her intentional miss, she had calculated the range's specific atmospheric effects and adjusted her scope accordingly. Her second shot struck dead center. So did her third, fourth, and fifth. She completed the course with a perfect score, but her time was still significantly slower than the other candidates. The range fell silent, No candidate had ever missed intentionally to gather environmental data, then achieved perfection on their actual attempt. Interesting technique, Henderson said grudgingly, but speed kills in this business. Literally. Week after week, the pattern continued. Emma would take longer than the others to complete shooting exercises, carefully analyzing environmental factors while her classmates relied on superior technical shooting skills and faster target acquisition. Henderson grew increasingly frustrated with her methodical approach, dubbing her Slowpoke in front of the other trainees. The nickname stuck, and soon everyone was using it with obvious mockery intended. During rapid engagement exercises, Emma's careful approach to environmental analysis was seen as a liability rather than wisdom. When scenarios required immediate shots at multiple targets, she would spend crucial seconds calculating atmospheric effects while her teammates engaged targets with impressive speed. "The Army doesn't have time for weather station readings in every engagement," Henderson told her after another lengthy exercise. "Either pick up the pace or find yourself counting supplies in a warehouse somewhere safe." But Emma's hunting background had taught her something her classmates hadn't learned yet. Growing up in Montana's extreme weather conditions, where missing a shot meant losing the only food your family might have for weeks, she had learned from her grandfather that understanding the environment was more important than understanding the weapon. "The rifle doesn't miss," her grandfather would tell her during long hunting expeditions. "The shooter misses by not listening to what the world is telling them about where the bullet wants to go." 6 weeks into the program, everything changed during a complex, long-range precision exercise. The scenario involved engaging targets at extreme distances under challenging environmental conditions, simulating the kind of precision shooting that snipers faced in mountainous combat zones around the world. Dylan took the lead position, approaching the 1,000-yard targets with his usual confident aggression. The weather conditions were challenging but manageable: moderate crosswinds, variable light conditions, and mild atmospheric disturbance. Standard long-range shooting protocols called for rapid target acquisition and immediate engagement to minimize exposure time. But as Emma studied the environmental conditions through her spotting scope, she noticed atmospheric phenomena that made her deeply uncomfortable. The wind patterns weren't consistent with the weather briefing, and the air density fluctuations suggested thermal layers that would create unpredictable bullet trajectory variations. "Range control, I'm observing wind pattern inconsistencies that don't match our briefed conditions," Emma reported through her radio. "Copy that, Slowpoke," Dylan replied dismissively from the primary shooting position. "Winds are within acceptable parameters. Engaging targets." Emma continued studying the atmospheric conditions through her scope. The thermal imaging data she was gathering showed temperature inversions that would create significant bullet drop variations at extreme ranges. The wind patterns were creating complex air currents that would affect horizontal trajectory in ways that standard ballistics calculations couldn't predict. "Range control, request permission to conduct extended environmental analysis before engagement," Emma transmitted. "Negative Walsh, standard engagement protocols apply. No time for academic research." But Emma's instincts, honed by years of hunting in Montana's unpredictable mountain weather, were screaming warnings. She had read every after-action report from recent sniper operations, studied every environmental factor that had caused mission failures in mountainous terrain. The atmospheric conditions looked exactly like the complex weather patterns that had been causing problems for precision marksmen in Afghanistan and other mountainous combat zones. As Dylan began engaging targets, his shots were consistently missing by margins that suggested systematic environmental factors rather than shooting errors. His first shot missed left by 8 inches. His second shot missed right by 6 inches. His confidence was rapidly eroding as the atmospheric conditions made accurate shooting nearly impossible. "What's wrong with this rifle?" Dylan muttered, checking his scope settings for the third time. Emma had been tracking the atmospheric changes and had identified the pattern. The thermal layers were creating complex air density variations that changed every 30 seconds as air masses moved through the shooting corridor. Successful engagement required timing shots to coincide with stable atmospheric windows. "Dylan, the thermal layers are creating density variations," Emma reported through her radio. "You need to time your shots for atmospheric stability windows." "I don't need shooting advice from Slowpoke," Dylan replied, frustration evident in his voice as he missed his fourth consecutive shot. Emma had identified more than just atmospheric timing issues. Her extended observation had revealed that the thermal patterns followed predictable cycles that could be used to determine optimal shooting windows. Her hunting experience had taught her to recognize these environmental rhythms that other marksmen missed. "Range control, I can predict the atmospheric stability windows," Emma transmitted. "Request permission to demonstrate environmental timing techniques." Henderson's voice came through the radio, confusion replacing his earlier dismissiveness. "Explain, Walsh." "The thermal layers are cycling every 90 seconds. There's a 12-second window of atmospheric stability that occurs at the beginning of each cycle. Shots taken during these windows will have consistent trajectory, but shots taken during transition periods will be unpredictable." Emma's analysis proved correct. When Dylan timed his shots according to her atmospheric predictions, his accuracy immediately improved. His next 3 shots struck within the target zone, a dramatic improvement that validated Emma's environmental analysis. "How did you identify those patterns?" Henderson asked through the radio. "Hunting in mountain environments teaches you to read atmospheric conditions," Emma replied. "Animals move according to air current patterns, so successful hunters learn to recognize thermal layer behaviors." Over the following weeks, Emma's environmental analysis techniques began to influence the entire program. Her approach to atmospheric prediction, combined with her innovative timing methods, started appearing in other candidates' shooting strategies. Henderson began incorporating her techniques into the official curriculum. But the real test came during the final exercise, a realistic scenario based on actual sniper operations in mountainous combat zones. Emma's team was tasked with providing precision fire support for a hostage rescue operation in simulated extreme weather conditions that replicated the challenges faced by American snipers in real combat situations. Emma was assigned as the backup marksman, a role that typically involves supporting the primary sniper without question. But as they prepared for the mission, Emma's analysis of the weather conditions revealed complications that standard shooting doctrine couldn't address. The scenario involved engaging targets at extreme range during a simulated thunderstorm with hurricane-force wind gusts and variable precipitation. Standard sniper doctrine called for mission postponement under such conditions, but the exercise parameters required immediate action to prevent simulated hostage execution. "These conditions are beyond normal operational parameters," Carlos observed as he studied the weather data from the primary shooting position. "I can make the shots," Emma said quietly, her analysis of the environmental conditions revealing possibilities that conventional wisdom said were impossible. Carlos was skeptical. 800-yard precision shooting in 40-mile-per-hour crosswinds? That's not humanly possible. "The wind patterns aren't random," Emma replied, her scope trained on the atmospheric disturbances. "There are stability pockets between the major gusts that last approximately 6 seconds. Combined with the precipitation patterns, there are windows where accurate shooting is possible." Emma had identified something that went beyond standard meteorological analysis. Her hunting background had taught her to recognize micro-weather patterns that created brief opportunities for precision shooting even in extreme conditions. It required understanding not just wind speed and direction, but the complex interactions between multiple atmospheric factors. "I can predict when the stability windows will occur," she explained to her skeptical teammates. "The atmospheric disturbances follow patterns that repeat every 2 minutes. If I time the shots correctly, I can achieve precision accuracy even in these conditions." The exercise began with simulated hostage takers positioned at extreme range under deteriorating weather conditions. Carlos attempted the first shot using standard environmental calculations, but the complex atmospheric conditions made accurate shooting impossible. His round missed by over 12 inches, a margin that would have resulted in hostage casualties in a real operation. "Wind conditions are too variable for precision shooting," Carlos reported to exercise control. Emma had been tracking the atmospheric patterns for 20 minutes and had identified the precise timing of stability windows. "Request permission to attempt the shot," she transmitted. "Negative, Walsh. Conditions are beyond operational parameters." But Emma could see through her scope that the next stability window would provide a clear shot opportunity. The atmospheric conditions that seemed chaotic to conventional analysis actually followed predictable patterns that her hunting experience had taught her to recognize. "I have a clear atmospheric window in 30 seconds, she reported. "Request permission to engage." Henderson's voice came through the radio after a long pause. "Walsh, explain your confidence in these conditions." "The wind gusts are creating low-pressure zones that produce brief atmospheric stability. Combined with the precipitation patterns, there's a 6-second window every 2 minutes where precision shooting is possible. The next window occurs in 15 seconds. Emma's shot was perfect. Despite hurricane-force winds and driving rain, her bullet struck the target with precision that seemed impossible under the conditions. The second shot, timed for the next stability window, was equally accurate. "How is that possible?" Carlos asked, staring at the targets through his scope. "I'm not fighting the weather," Emma replied. "I'm using it. The atmospheric disturbances create predictable patterns if you understand how to read them." Emma's technique revolutionized extreme weather marksmanship. Her ability to identify and utilize brief stability windows allowed for precision shooting under conditions that had previously been considered impossible for sniper operations. When graduation day arrived, Emma Walsh stood at the top of her sniper school class, not because she was the fastest or most technically proficient marksman, but because she had proven that environmental understanding and atmospheric analysis were more valuable than pure shooting skill in extreme conditions. General Michael Rodriguez, the commanding officer of Army Special Operations, presented her with the Distinguished Graduate Award. "Sergeant Walsh represents the evolution of precision marksmanship," he told the assembled crowd. "She has shown us that the sniper who understands the environment will always outperform the sniper who relies solely on technical shooting ability." Emma's innovations were quickly incorporated into sniper doctrine across all branches of the military. Her approach to environmental analysis, once seen as too slow and academic, became the foundation for next-generation precision marksmanship methodology. Years later, when asked about her success in sniper training, Emma would always credit her grandfather's hunting wisdom. "He taught me that every shot is a conversation between the rifle, the bullet, and the world," she would say. "You just have to listen carefully enough to understand what the environment is telling you before you pull the trigger." The farm girl from Montana, who had been dismissed as too slow and methodical, had revolutionized modern precision marksmanship. She had proven that in an era of extreme range engagements and challenging environmental conditions, The greatest advantage comes not from shooting faster, but from understanding the atmospheric forces that determine where every bullet will actually go when lives depend on perfect accuracy.